Man, the Hoover free flights fiasco really was just ready-made for BCTV. I'm still in awe of the absolute wasteland of common sense that the British Hoover boardrooms must have been while all this was going on. I also have a soft spot for any corporate disaster remarkable enough to have its own Wikipedia page. That's really something. Anyway, we were lucky enough to get the inimitable Dan Forrest back for this episode. Here he's playing William Faust, president of Hoover Europe. And Darcy's essaying Brian Webb, then vice president of marketing. Both of them were dismissed for their involvement in the free flights fiasco along with one other executive. I should hasten to say that, to my knowledge, neither Faust nor Webb were insanely stereotypical gay men as Darcy and Dan have played them here. That's an affectation we added, obviously, for comedic effect, and also because we thought it was clever in a lowbrow sort of way to have the executives of a vacuum cleaner company be gay, and if you don't get that joke, well, you're a better person than I. Also, as an added bonus, it gave them a reason to keep listening to Dr. Doomsday, whom they found, quite unaccountably, to be a gorgeous man. Actually, that's another stupid gay stereotype that pisses me off. The idea that all gay men are attracted to all other men doesn't really work like that. If you want a gay guy to go after you, you're probably gonna need more than a dick. Maybe a few hours in the gym a week. Anyway, enough tangents. Respect gay people, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, what were we talking about? Ah yes, Dr. Doomsday. Speaking of Dr. D, it was fun to bring him back. I was looking for an interesting angle at which to approach this story, and the good doctor being the cause of Hoover's chaos and discord presented itself as a fun way to do just that. Darcy suggested adding the vacuum cleaner masturbation gag, and I couldn't think of a single reason not to. This is going to be a case of tooting my own horn horribly, but I must say I was pleased as punch with the way we introduced Doomsday in this episode, holding off on his reveal and then hitting you with the lightning strike. I think it gave him just the right amount of gravitas to announce him as a semi-important character in the BCTV universe. I think that's our first character occurrence too, so I did want to mark the occasion. Also, hey, you get to learn his first name even if you can't pronounce it. The only question is Doomsday his real last name? Let the theories begin. I'd like now, if you'll indulge me, to go into a bit of detail about the similarities between Doomsday and Noah Antweiler's mad scientist character, Dr. Insano. Now, I get the feeling that a lot of people have the idea that Doomsday was inspired by Insano, and while I have no problem with that, I am a ruthless and unprincipled thief to say the least. In the interest of full disclosure, I wrote Doomsday's original episode way back in March of 2012, and I only became aware of Noah's work around November of that year, so unfortunately Doomsday can't claim inspiration from Spoonie. That doesn't mean I think the similarities between the two characters are purely coincidental though, quite the opposite. The mad scientist is such a dominant, pervasive, widely understood archetype in popular culture that any iteration which crops up is going to have a lot in common with all the other iterations. Because when you do a character like this, you're tapping into the cultural consciousness to take advantage of a shorthand which exists in viewers' minds and has been built up over years of consuming various types of culture in which this archetype is dominant. And if you go too far outside the archetype, he stops being a mad scientist, it becomes something else. So it's important to stick to the tropes. All of which is to say, I feel that both Doomsday and Insano are pretty generic mad scientist types, so it's no surprise they have a lot in common. The lab coat costumes, the vaguely European accents, the maniacal laughs. You have to have a maniacal laugh. Otherwise, I just don't think you can call yourself a mad scientist. I always try for cartoon German for my mad scientist accent. Not sure how it went, but at least it sounds funny. German accents are pretty common for mad scientists, and I'd say that grew out of the Nazi experiments of World War II and the public's increasing paranoia about the misuse of scientific progress around the same time. So in those post-war years, you got a lot of evil mad scientists in the movies, and a lot of the time they were German, to combine and play into those two public perceptions. So I think that's how that particular aspect of the archetype came into public understanding. I didn't spend too long on Doomsday's laugh either. It just sort of came during the line readings, and I enjoyed enough to just let it be. We had a 2-camera setup for this episode, and you'll notice I gleefully utilized the wide variety of shots in the edit. Now that didn't work for at least one viewer, Graphite Heart looking at you, which is fine, but having put together 32 of these videos now, I'll admit that on a purely technical level, it was great fun to get a bit busier with the cutting and the changing up of the camera angles in the edit. I personally think it worked quite well, but Busy-Cam seems to be a love it or hate it deal, so I totally get it if it isn't your cup of tea. And if it isn't, well, extra thanks for watching. Cheers guys, see you next time.